Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery podcast are proud to bring you Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast. Join your hosts, Mike the Podfather and Jersey Ed, as they address the real issues in health and wellness for first responders. From physical and mental health to relationships and work-life balance, we leave no stone unturned. Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube, as well as iHeartRadio. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your friends in recovery answering the calls.
Welcome to Answering the Call, First Responders podcast. I am the Podfather, Mike Miles, and I'm here with...
Hi guys, Jersey Ed. Taking the back seat in the cop car today.
Right. And of course, we always
like that one.
Yeah, we always like to mention being sponsored by FirstNet, built by AT&T, right, Ed? I mean,
absolutely. They have hit a home run with us, and we have hit a home run with them. And we like to thank FirstNet, built by AT&T, and you'll hear their commercials stick through the commercial, because we also talk about good stuff on the other side of the commercial too. So, right. Podfather, who do we have on as a guest today? Just give us a teaser here, and we'll give you some phone numbers and bring them in.
If you could look over my left shoulder, way in the back, you might see a picture of my good friend, Tom Fleming. We've been friends for about 40 years. Tom was a sergeant on the Lowell Police Department before he retired. Many accomplishments, personally and professionally. He ran Police Academy for over 20 years. When I say ran, he was the director of a police academy for a couple of them, actually, over 20 years. Trained literally thousands of police officers throughout Massachusetts. I don't know anybody that worked harder, that not just worked harder, but, Tom was the type of police officer that you'd want to follow him. He was a leader, like an indigenous leader as well, but he was also somebody that walked the walk. In other words, physical fitness was his thing. Nobody was going to outrun him in the academy. All these young guys came in when he was in his 40s and 50s, and they thought they were going to shine, and he'd start them off on a mile run, 2 mile. Next thing you know, they're doing 8, 9, 10 miles. Everybody's sucking wind but Tommy. And he'd be running back and forth, getting everybody in line, and, and that just emanates respect up and down every academy class. Close friend. When I started my recovery 34 years ago, I didn't have a lot of people that were sticking around that were helping me out, but him and his wife, Jean, were right there for me. Tom has 5 children, all very successful. He has 2 sons, both graduated from West Point. And tours of duty. He has 3 daughters that are all very successful. Just a great grandchild. He has grandchildren. He's got it all. But you know what? I don't know anybody that's worked harder and that gave more to law enforcement than Tom Fleming. And I mean that because not only did he support the people in Lowell, the civilians in Lowell as a police officer, and he lived in Lowell at one time, but he also was a sergeant, supervised many police officers in Lowell. Then he was the director of the academies, and both 2 police academies, one for the Lowell Police Department, one for Methuen Police Department. He's got I think he has 2 master's degrees. I know he has a master's degree in wellness, and maybe one in law enforcement. I don't know, he'll tell us. But anyway, I mean, I can go on and on about Tom. But Tom, you out there?
Hey, Mike.
What did I miss?
Jersey Ed. No, you set the bar pretty high. Now I really have to come through for you guys. But both the Podfather and Jersey Ed, good friends of mine. And, I've learned a lot from both of you. And I know that recovery is a big part of your life. And I've learned a lot from Mike, watching him in his recovery. I know he mentioned a little bit about what I did as a police officer, and exercise really was a big part of my life. But it's also, it might be the last thing you think about, but it's actually a big part of recovery because it's really pretty similar. And what I think about from the people I know and I've been around in recovery is that, and studies have shown this too as well, that one thing about exercise is you get a routine. And when you're early on in your recovery, that's what you need. You need a routine. So you start to, whether it's go out for a walk or go to the gym or go for a run or meet some people, it helps you. It helps you in your recovery. It helps your health. It helps you sleep. Sometimes you're angry. It calms you down. There are so many things that you can get out of exercise. You put the time in, that'll help you in your recovery. And that's what I've seen over the years.
Right. And Tom, let me talk about the mental health part of this, because a lot of police officers, they suffer from, as you know, anxiety, PTSD, depression. They have problems with the job itself. They have problems with their own personal lives. We know suicide, addiction, big parts of law enforcement is right up there in the top, 2 or 3 as far as suicide. Just that alone is scary. But you and I have been to many homes to tell people their loved ones weren't coming home. We've also been to many homes of police officers that weren't coming home. And exercise, nutrition, very helpful with depression, anxiety, right, Tom?
Yeah, I think that it may be often overlooked, but a lot of times, and believe it or not, you're the personality, the personality of an addictive person is really pretty close to a person that does a lot of exercise. I mean, Mike knows me personally that if I don't exercise a certain day, I'm not the same. It's just like the people, if they don't have the drink or the drug, so our personalities are close. And I don't want to say I'm substituting or I'm trying to encourage people to substitute one addiction for the other. But what I'm saying is that it's very easy to make that crossover from addiction to exercise. There's a big thing in exercise about what happens to you mentally, and endorphins are released in your body when you're exercise, that regardless of who you are, what you do. And that's kind of like a natural high. You see people, they exercise and they say, oh, I feel good. That was a nice run or a nice walk, a nice time in the gym. So that's what they need. That's very, very common in someone in recovery. They want that feeling, and you can get that from exercising. So that's why I think, like Mike said, you have a lot of the police officers that it's a tough job. You work in all hours, different hours. Your sleep pattern is off, and that's another thing with. I think of it with exercise. Exercise helps you sleep. A lot of times your sleep pattern is off when you're in recovery. You don't have a routine. Maybe you kind of find, I don't want to say the right person, but you're with a different crowd. Instead of hanging at the bar, you're hanging at the gym. So that helps your routine. And then it really helps your self-confidence. I mean, I know Mike recently lost a lot of weight. He took some of these wellness ideas and changed his diet around, and he feels so much better. So I think it's really a good parallel to recovery. I'm not saying that it substitutes, the 12-step program or, being with your therapist or anything like that at all. But it's more of a, that instead of substituting, it supplements. It's something in addition. Yeah,
that's a great point. And you're preaching to the choir, because Jersey Ed, I mean, nothing pisses me off more than if I get a call from him and I answer and I hear, hey, yeah, listen, this is what we got to do for the show. I go, wait, are you running? Oh yeah. I'm running 21 today. I'm like 21. I won't even drive 21 unless I, have a cup of coffee with me.
Well, Podfather and Tommy, this is right up my alley here, and I think this is going to be a 5-hour show today because of its exercising, and you and I can talk forever. But you're right; those endorphins are released. Even just hearing you talk about it, I could feel it going. Because I'm like, and I understand it, I get it, I know it, and it just, because, and I'm in recovery. Yeah, I mean, obviously we know that, but people who are in recovery gets that feeling, and we don't have to get high, we don't have to fuck up our bodies, we don't have to mess anything up, our lives or whatever. We just go out and exercise, and in turn, I like what you said about the Podfather. Podfather took some of these tips into his own life and started losing weight. You lose weight mentally, you feel better. Podfather, we know from past shows that you feel better mentally because of, your anxiety level has gone way down because of exercise. My anxiety levels have gone way down because of exercise.
Well, I'm a firm believer, if you have only one chin, if you have only one chin, you know, your life's going to be a little bit better, you know. But you know what's amazing?
Yeah.
You know what's amazing? I weighed 242, my highest at one time. I'm 5'8", and you know, I knew I had a belly, but I never really looked at myself as fat until I lost weight, and I go, "Oh my God, I was a balloon," you know. But being where I'm at now, as you go in, plus I'm 66, as you're going into those twilight years, you know, you want to go in there as fit as possible. I don't want a stroke. I don't want a heart attack. I don't want diabetes. I don't want any of that stuff. I don't want cancer. But one thing I can prevent is I can prevent being obese, and I can prevent that. And, you know, it's really good. But again, who did I go to ask about it? Was Tommy Fleming, you know. I have a younger daughter, and she's absolutely gorgeous, 27. All my kids are very healthy, attractive, wonderful children. And when she was younger, she was a cheerleader, and she had a little pressure on her, I think, you know, because she might have had that little bit of baby fat that, you know, a lot of kids have it, especially girls. And I brought her to see Tommy, and Tommy had told her at one time, Kara, he said, when you're making portions, make them the size of your fist. And of course, she's a little girl. She has small hands. And that's always stuck in my head. And until I actually started doing it, it started to work. And I did it 15 years, 12 years after he told her about it. But anyway, so
Tommy,
Tom, as far as the as far as what's going on now with in law enforcement, we see it. You know, I'm a 35-year vet. You're a 35-year vet. You know, what do you think? I mean, are they going to come through this? Are all these young cadets? Is policing going to be so much different 5 years from now than it is now? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting you bring that topic up. I just read an article yesterday about how the military is having an extremely difficult time reaching their recruiting goals because they can't find young men and women that can meet the initial physical fitness standards. And the military, the Department of Defense, they're looking to work with Health and Human Services and other cabinet level positions to actually put a big program together all over the country to help middle school and elementary school boys and girls about health, so that when they get to high school age, they'll be prepared to join the military. And I don't think it's much different in law enforcement at all. I was never really, when I ran the police academies, and as Mike said, I started the first academy in 1996, and my last academy was in 2018. So it was about 22, 24 years. And I never really trained police officers when it came to physical fitness part of the academy to, you know, be fast, chase a suspect, because you can do that in the police academy and run all these sprints and try to get fast. But if you don't do it the rest of your life, you don't stay fast.
Right.
So I tried to use that time more in terms of health. How can we teach the young recruits to be healthy? And hopefully when they graduate from the academy, they'll learn something and they'll stay healthy. And they always said to me, you know, why do we run? You know, I'm never going to chase someone 4 miles or 5 miles.
That's for sure. I know I wasn't.
You know, and when we start in the academy, we have a program. The first week you'd run a mile, and the academy was 20 weeks long. And by the end of the academy, you'd run 10 miles. But that was all about I was teaching them mental discipline, how to handle stress, how to be healthy. And a lot of them have kept up with it. A lot of them have gone on to run marathons. Many of them just stay in physical condition. And I'm not a proponent of necessarily going out and running marathons. I've never run one myself. But I'm the same height and weight I was when I graduated from high school.
Oh my God.
So that gives you an idea. I've run some crazy distances. I've done some, 30 and mile runs and stuff like that. But so I think that the young boys and girls, the big thing at the academy level is to get them healthy, teach them to be healthy. And honestly, that whole thing about chasing suspects is very blown up. You see it on TV, in real life, the average cop probably chases someone about 3 or 4 times a year, an entire year. Right. You know, we've got radios and other police officers and backup, and usually you chase someone for 100 yards and it's over.
Right,
Although I've had some pretty long.
Oh yeah, you certainly have. Listen, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come back and talk about some of your chases. All right. Hey, answering the call, First Responders Podcast. We'll be right back.
You're first to respond, first to put others' lives before your own. And in an emergency, you need a network that puts you first, that connects you to technology, to each other, and to other agencies. Built with and for first responders. FirstNet, the only congressionally authorized wireless network for first responders. Because putting you first is our job.
Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. At Genesis House, they focus on treating the underlying causes of addiction. Their comprehensive approach includes psychiatric care, individual and small group therapy, trauma healing techniques, and holistic care including yoga, massage, and animal-assisted therapy. After treatment, their clients enjoy the lifelong support of a nationwide network of Genesis House alumni. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Answering the Call First Responders Podcast. I am the Podfather, Mike Miles, and I'm here with
Jersey Ed, guys.
Jersey Ed and our good friend and guest, Tom Fleming. We'll get right back to Tom in a minute.
Just want to give out some numbers here, Podfather, for just some help if you're having some mental or physical or whatever psychological problems, and if you want to talk to somebody, copline.org can help. That's Copline, COPLINE.org. And you can also call them at 1-800-COPLINE. That's 1-800-267-5463. And that's some specific lines for police officers or manned by police officers that will help you with any kind of situation you might be in. So if you're feeling stuck or low, or maybe you're not worth it anymore, please call that number or get to a hospital or get a hold of somebody and call those folks. And also Friends in Recovery community support and Friends in Recovery podcast Facebook pages and Instagram pages. Make sure you like us and all that stuff too. And Podfather, before we bring Tommy back in, and Tommy, you heard that commercial too. FirstNet built by AT&T, guys. I mean, come on. I know we talked about it at the beginning of the show, but that commercial and it's just so cool to have these guys as sponsors and knowing that there's a specific network for you guys, just specifically for you guys, huh?
Yeah. And, Tommy and I we've both been in power outages. We've been in catastrophes where there's been floods and, bad fires and just especially, up in New England, you lose power more times than not, when there's a heavy snowstorm. Old New England is old New England. And basically, we have a lot of wires down.
Yeah.
And heavy snowstorms sometimes for days. So having a sponsor like FirstNet built by AT&T, and just to know that it's there, it's a comforting, for someone like myself who's been in law enforcement more than half his life. It's very comforting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike, I just went into the AT&T store the other day. I was getting my phone there, and sure enough, right in the window, big advertisement for the net program for the first responders, police and fire. And I've had an AT&T phone. I had that for a while. I like it a lot.
I know you have. I know. It's quite impressive and very flattering that they contacted Jersey Ed and Skylar and Melissa and Taylor down in Genesis, and here we are. They're sponsoring our podcast and this podcast here, and we're just all about helping people in law enforcement, veterans, corrections, EMS. I mean, that's what we're here for. been doing this. We're going into our third year, and I'm proud to be able to say that, we have such a fabulous sponsor, as we have with Genesis House too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're back here, Tom. Tom, before we went on a break, we're talking about running. I just got a couple things. I remember one night I was working a cruiser, and I heard Tommy Fleming was a patrolman, and Tommy was known for his running prowess back then. He Special Olympics. Every year he'd run the Special Olympics up in Massachusetts. I actually think he's in the Special Olympics Hall of Fame for the money he's raised over the years. So I hear a radio burst go out. I'm in foot pursuit. I'm heading up Chestnut Street. And I'm in a cruiser. I'm coming down Andover Street, and he's chasing a bad guy from a nightclub. And I thought, oh, this guy has no idea who's chasing him, And Tommy's like a gazelle, and he's running and he's speaking. Most cops would be in a foot chase. You can't understand him. Tommy's crystal clear. All right, we're turning right onto High Street. I'm almost behind him. I'm almost. And I was so excited that I came flying across the intersection up on the sidewalk. And the bad guy looked over his left shoulder. We never saw the cruiser. And he kind of ran into me and went right over the hood, and we got him, But and then another time, Tommy asked me for a ride to Reading Center. So from Lowell to Reading is about 22 miles. So I drove him. And he said, I'm getting dropped off. He had a torch with him. And he said, I'm going to meet some guys and we're going to run into Boston, which was about 15 miles from where we were. And I thought, all right. And he got out of the car and off he went, and I'd never seen anything like this. But so, Tom, what's the farthest you ever run?
Yeah. I appreciate you bringing up about the Special Olympics. That's close to, I always did that as a charity. I helped to raise money for Special Olympics. Wow. Yeah. Law Enforcement Torch Run for Special Olympics. It's a program all over the country, a charity program where law enforcement helps to raise money for the Special Olympians. You get sponsors so much per mile. So Mike dropped me off, like you said, one day in Reading, and I ran into Boston, and I got sponsors so much per mile, and I raised a couple $100. And then another time I ran from Lowell to Boston. It was about 33 miles, and I brought the torch to the opening ceremony, and they kept telling me is there a way to raise more money? And ultimately I was raised probably, well over $500,000 in a few years for the Special Olympics. And I was inducted into the Special Olympics Hall of Fame, which is a real honor to be with those special athletes. But I decided that what I could do, if I could get some sponsors, I got someone to take me out to the New York border, way out in Western Massachusetts. And they dropped me off there on a Monday morning out in Williamstown on the New York border. And I ran every day, 30 miles a day, 5 days in a row, 150 miles to the State House. Governor Romney was a governor at the time, and he met me there at the State House. Wow. And so I don't think I would do that again. By the third day, I couldn't even walk. Western Massachusetts is very, very hilly, much worse than I thought. But we had a course mapped out, and what we'd do is we'd run for an hour or so, and we ran on courses where there are elementary schools and middle schools, and we'd stop and we'd talk to the children about Special Olympics, get a little something to eat, then run for another hour. And we do that all day long. And we did that 5 days a week, myself and Rick Murr, a friend of mine with Special Olympics, and ran all the way across the state. But, getting back to the first responders and police officers, even the military as well, is that when you're exercising, that helps to build your confidence. You say, well, let's go walk. We're going to walk a mile. We're going to walk 2 miles. We're going to walk 3 miles. And you meet people in recovery, and it helps to get them in a routine. The exercise is good. And it really builds people confidence that they say, oh, I can do that. I can be able to do this. And then it helps you compose you. Sometimes you have a lot of negativity when you're in recovery. And when you're exercising, that really makes you feel better. You feel confident. It does away with that negativity. Learn to deal with the anger. You're sleeping better as a result of the exercise. It increases your energy. You're in a better mood. And it's funny that all these things I'm mentioning about exercise, are things that oftentimes come up in therapy or in counseling when you're talking about addiction, regardless of the drug of choice, is that we're talking about mood, we're talking about anger, we're talking about confidence, talking about your health, your sleep, your routine, who you spend time with. And that's why I think exercise could play a big role in helping people with recovery. And I know we're almost near the end, but I have a couple things that I always tell people is I ask them, especially young boys and girls, I ask them, what's the most important thing about today's workout? And they'll say, oh, how many push-ups I do, or how many sit-ups I do, or how much weight I lift, or how far I run. I said, no, the most important thing about today's workout is tomorrow's workout. And they say, oh, what do you mean by tomorrow's workout? I said, yeah, well, if you mess up today and you do too much, you do too hard, then you're not going to exercise tomorrow. And that's the same in recovery. What's the most important thing about today is getting to tomorrow. And that's the most important thing about exercises, especially people eager to get into it. They do too much too soon. So whenever you're exercising, you always got to think about what's the important thing about today is I want to make sure I can exercise tomorrow. And it's come back to the same thing. It's one day at a time. Whatever it is, it's one day at a time.
Tommy, that's something I use all the time. I kind of focus on another way. Remember tomorrow. That's whatever I do. If it's exercise, if I want to go out another 10 miles instead of, whatever it is, remember tomorrow. And I live by that in every part of my life. So thank you for bringing that up.
And one day at a time, it's funny. I go back to my children. My daughter, Kara, she's very accomplished, like all my kids are, but she is the youngest. So I feel like I always tell her to be careful when she's driving. She texted me a couple of weeks ago and said, Dad, I'm 27. I am careful when I drive. You don't have to say it every day, but she said to me one day, she goes, Dad, this one day at a time is really a good way to look at life. And she doesn't have a problem with any substance or anything, but I always say, just try to keep it in the day. That way you don't have to worry about the past. You don't have to worry about the future. Just keep it in the day and your life will be so much better. Suck it back in when you start worrying about 3 weeks from now, your vacation, the bills you got to pay, the money. Because you know what? We keep it in the day. But Tom, so good having you as a guest. We're going to have you on again, I think, very soon. We can talk about another topic. I appreciate you doing this. I think if anybody, we've been doing this for 32 years. I'm sorry. We've been doing this from, I got a mug up there. I think it says 87. Yeah. So, we've been doing this for quite a while. Tommy and I, we started a nonprofit called New Attitudes back in the 80s, 87. And always did, neither one of us had any education towards, what we have now, but we were helping cops that had problems because we both had problems and we helped each other. And then we got help from other police officers, Rick Manley from the state police. We went down to Pittsburgh. We were at a convention down there for chiefs of police. But my point is, Tommy's always been about helping police officers, Special Olympics. I mean, what's more near and dear to anyone's heart than Special Olympics, especially when you get to see the Olympians and their accomplishments. And Tommy, I had an older brother who was what they deemed retarded back in the 40s, special needs. He passed away in 94. But, I was always so proud to watch what you did. And Chris and I actually followed you the last mile and a half of one of the times you ran into College Stadium and all those Olympians were there. And I'll tell you, you couldn't help but get emotional. It was just amazing. So, Tom, thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Jersey Ed, and thank you, Podfather, for having me. And I look forward to being back with you. You're great guys, and you're doing good work for all the first responders. I appreciate it, and thanks to AT&T as well.
All right.
That's right, guys. Yeah. FirstNet built by AT&T. Podfather, what a great show. And, Tommy, we definitely need you back on because we can keep going and going and going and talk about all this.
Yeah, he could do his own show.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hey, answering the call, the First Responders Podcast. Stay
safe, everybody. I'll get it one day, I promise, guys.
Yeah, right.
Stay safe.
Great show.
Thanks, Tommy. Bye, everybody.